Hi, this is Zach Wheeler. Welcome to the Phillies Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies Show. Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury. I'm Todd Zulecki. It's Monday morning, March 3rd, 2025. Hope everybody is doing well. Are you guys doing well? Jim, Ruben?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
You guys look great. We're feeling good down here. Phillies off today. We thought we'd get together and, do another episode. The Phillies played 3 games over the weekend, one in Lakeland. The drive to Lakeland, guys. The drive back. Soul-sucking drive, man. You guys remember that drive. It was a bad drive. Aaron Nola pitched on Saturday in Lakeland, and then Christopher Sanchez and Taiwan Walker pitched in a split squad yesterday, Sunday. Christopher Sanchez against the Orioles at Big Bear Ballpark, and then Taiwan Walker pitched in TD Ballpark in beautiful Dunedin. We'll talk about all those guys in a little bit, but I just wanted to share. I don't know if you guys caught this yesterday. Spring training is a time for fun, and there was some spring training hijinks yesterday in Dunedin. Do you guys hear about this? So the ABS challenge system, for those people who don't know where, is being implemented this spring, a kind of a trial run by Major League Baseball. And Max Scherzer, the future Hall of Famer, said last week, can't we just be judged by humans? Very, very dramatically. And so yesterday during pregame stretch, Trea Turner's stretching next to his buddy Bryson Stott, and Stott goes, I bet you won't challenge the first pitch. You would never do it. Trea Turner says, oh, yes, I would. And then Max Scherzer throws a first pitch strike right over the plate. Trea Turner challenges. Now they're former teammates. They go back a ways. Max Scherzer had a look on his face like, what the hell is going on here? Realized what's happened. Got a good laugh out of it. Everybody got a good laugh out of it. And then, of course, then also Max Scherzer also played Bryson Stott's walk-up music, or requested Bryson Stott's A-OK walk-up music to be played before each of his at-bats when he faced Scherzer. That's because Bryson Stott in his career is 8 for 13 with 1 double against Max Scherzer. So he was trying to needle him a little bit. So there was a couple things going on pregame, but that was a lot of fun. That's kind of like the fun part of spring training, right, guys? Is some of the wackiness that you see on the field and some of the good times.
Yeah, it is. You can do some fun stuff in spring training, but it kind of made me, Scherzer, he's temperamental. I mean, he's a competitor. He's on the edge, and it made me recall when Joe Girardi, that first night when they brought in the sticky stuff challenge. Joe Girardi goes after Scherzer in Citizens Bank Park, and Scherzer was all kinds of upset. But obviously, this was not a regular season game, so his competitive juices were not stoked. Former teammates, and if anybody can get away with it, it's like Trea Turner, it's like Bryce Harper. Those are the guys. They were teammates, they know them, and they have a certain status and a certain paycheck, and get away with stuff like that. So it was kind of fun. It was also a bit shocking because the pitch almost dissected the plate.
Hey, whatever happened to the fun in the game? It's supposed to have fun playing baseball. I mean, used to be so many quirky guys. Now people focus on bat flips and, guys, celebrating after certain things. How about just having some fun without having to show other people up? This is just fun. And I think it's kind of a cool thing. I mean, obviously these 2 guys they're making the team. They don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. They're just getting ready for the season. So it's a little different for them than it would be for, a kid like Adrian Miller, who's trying to make a team or make an impression at least. And so it's a little different. And, even different for guys like, I don't know, Kennedy, or, even a guy like Rojas. I mean, you're still trying to get yourself planted into the major leagues, but it's cool to have some fun out there, man. It's baseball. It's supposed to.
Todd, how did Skipper Thompson, because he wants to take these a little bit seriously, where Terry Francona out in Cincinnati says don't bother with it. Rob is like, and we have to remind our viewers that we don't know if this is going to be used next year in 26. This is a trial run in spring training, but Rob, wants his guys to take these seriously.
Yeah, so That was probably the one guy who was not super pumped about this because Rob Thompson said early in camp, he asked these guys early in camp or told his players early in camp, I should say, sorry, that I want you guys fighting for jobs to, feel comfortable challenging a ball on a strike because that can make the difference between a hit, a home run, a strikeout, a walk, big inning, a clean inning. And that could make the difference between you making the team or not, or finishing the spring with good numbers, making a good impression. So I asked Rob post game, I said, so I assume you weren't in on this first pitch challenge. And he goes, I was not. And then Mac goes, did you not find it funny? He goes, and then he kind of repeated what he said. He's like, listen, that was one last challenge. That could have meant something to somebody down the road. So he was the one guy who was not, he did not find the humor in it as much. And he kind of shut it down when we were talking to him about it. But still a fun moment, in my opinion, all things considered. So, but we're going to have some.
Ruben, you're talking, I'm sorry to,
no.
But, fun moments between the pitcher and the batter. Did you ever see the YouTube video from the 70s? And I think Nolan Ryan's working on a no-hitter against the Tigers. And Norm Cash goes up to the plate with – he had broken a leg off a table in the clubhouse, and he went up to the plate with the leg of a table because he knew he had no chance of hitting Nolan Ryan on this day. You can find it on YouTube. He didn't just get – beamed for that, but the umpire is laughing, everybody's laughing.
He typically would have gotten from Nolan Ryan because he was a tyrant on the mound.
A tyrant.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is great. I never heard that story.
Yeah, you got to go on YouTube and try to find that. It's pretty funny, and the umpire loses it. I just oh my god, I can't believe.
One of the most fun times was watching Crucky flip his batting helmet around. And try to stand in there against Randy Johnson. I think it was an all-star game.
It was in Camden Yards in 93.
And he threw one literally over his head.
Oh my
but that was an exhibition game as well. This thing with Norm Cash was that was during regular season game. You guys have to cue it up.
I gotta look that up. We got a lot more fun coming right after these words.
All right, FT fam, collectors. There is a new, better way to buy, sell, trade, or display your sports cards. It's called Arena Club. And Kratz, I know you love it. The FT fam's got to go to arenaclub.com/foul to sign up and get a little extra something I'll tell you about in a moment. But buying in the past was clunky.
It wasn't easy. But now you don't have to worry about any of the shipping. And it's easy right there. It's guaranteed authentic too for me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. Arena Club uses blockchain technology to deliver your card immediately. There's no shipping delays. You don't lose your card in transit. There's no, my dog ate the card and now you don't have it, so here's a different one instead. So right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase.
You just found it?
Yeah, it happened in July.
Send us the link.
July of 73. Pretty funny.
That is amazing. Well, we are excited, guys. We are very, very excited today because it's the beginning of March. Got less than a month to go before opening day. But we're also very excited because we have a new sponsor, a new weekly segment. And it is with our friends at Manco and Manco Pizza. Manco Pizza, Manco and Manco. They're down at the shore. They're everywhere at the shore. They're at the ballpark at Citizen Bank Park, and they're even at Baycare Ballpark in Clearwater. So we will be doing a segment all season long called Best Week because Manco and Manco is the best of the best. That's right.
And hey, awesome stuff. Great to have Chuck on board. Chuck Bangle, great dude. Very, very into Philly sports. He was as fired up as anybody with regard to the Eagles. He loves the Phillies, obviously, and got a great relationship with the man. It's great to have him on board. Welcome, Chucky B and Manco's Pizza. It's awesome.
It is great stuff. Eat a lot of that at the ballpark.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny when they first got in the ballpark a few years ago, I did a little, it was in the clubhouse, I think post game one day. And I was talking with somebody, they're like, people are just crushing this Manco stand out on Ashburn Alley. And they were selling like thousands of pizzas that first weekend. So I wrote a little note about it in my Phillies Beat newsletter. And then they came down here last spring. John Middleton talked to Chuck and he goes, I need me some Manco at the ballpark in Clearwater. So I wrote about that because, how are you going to get the dough the right way? It's got to be the same dough. And Chuck says there's a company that actually can replicate the water so you can make the same type of dough that you do up at the Jersey Shore and at Citizen Bank Park. So it is cool to come down here and be able to have some Manco. Well, so you come down, you watch the Phillies, you have some Manco pizza. So here we go, guys. This is our new weekly segment. We'll be running in the first episode every week. It's called Best Week. Best Week.
Nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we got a little graphic if you're watching on YouTube. We got Best Week presented by Manco and Manco Pizza, the best of the best. And here's what this is. Whatever you guys, Ruben, Jim, whatever you feel is the best of the week. It could be a play, it could be a player, it could be a moment, it could be whatever. Ruben, you shoot 72 on the golf course. You want to pump yourself up a little bit? Go for it. It's the best week, right? So, Ruben, who do you got? Best week. I know you didn't shoot 72 this week, so
no.
Let's do best week, Ruben. Who you got for best week?
I got Rincones Jr., man. He is going nuts. He's going crazy. He's got ridiculous power. Got 3 home runs now in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
All he does is hit bombs. I know that, he didn't have he's sort of a shortened season last year because he had some injury issues in Reading, but the numbers that he put up were dastardly. I mean, he's got some serious thunder. I would assume he'll start in Lehigh Valley this year. He may start in Reading. I'm not quite sure. Corner outfielder, plays right, plays left. Been bounced around a little bit during spring training, but the fact that he's picked up 3 home runs early, now I know it's early. I know they'll start dissecting his swing and doing things to him, but he had a nice Arizona Fall League. He's really impressed, I think, and looks like there's some bright future. I mean, people are talking about Miller and, Painter and others and Crawford, but this guy's kind of bounced onto the scene, and he's really impressed me with the way he swung the bat. Luis Rincones Jr.
When we had Preston Mattingly on, I think last October, back when he was still the player development director, I think we did ask him who's your under the radar guy, and I think he might have mentioned. I think his guy might have been Rincones Jr. I think, so they, for sure, he's on the radar in your organization. But yeah, great spring so far. He crushes the ball.
What a big body. I mean, he's a real mature body guy already, strong lower half, strength all the way through his swing. Impressive guy. If he can play enough defense and control that strike zone, that's a little bit of his issue. We'll see what happens as he continues to matriculate through that organization.
And power, man. Power arms, power bats. Power is a premium tool in this game. It jumps out, grabs people's attention, and that's what this guy's power bat does. It's a big year for him. A couple of reasons. He needs to stay healthy. He needs to have a full season. Give him 135, 140 games. But I think it's a big season in kind of charting his future. He's going to be like 24 this year, so he'll play somewhere in the upper minors, AA, AAA. But I think the ideal is get to AAA, keep showing that power, and you never know. You never know. He certainly has gotten this season, the 2025 year, off to a really good start, turning a lot of heads in Clearwater. But they've always liked his power. It's a matter of consistency and staying on the field.
Who you got, Jim?
Who do you got?
Oh, my best. I'm going to go with Christopher Sanchez. I just love what I see, and I'm sure it's not unique. Everybody loves what they see, but I mean, just such a great pitcher's body. He was this tall, lanky guy, and now he's just filled out, and he's added strength to that frame to the point where I don't even know if you can call him lanky anymore. He looks like a defensive end. And what I love about him is the confidence and the presence. He's taken the mound with so much presence. I mean, the fastball is 99. The stuff is electric, and you mix that great equalizer, one of the best changeups in baseball, and you got a great package there. But I love what I'm seeing confidence-wise and presence-wise here in spring training. I think he's up to 4 2/3 innings, 8 strikeouts, and 1 walk, just 1 walk. So last year was a breakout year for this guy, and I just think he can build on it and become a super, super stud for this team. And, I wonder, Todd, we were talking about the rotation last week, how Rob is lining it up. I wonder if he's going to pitch game 4, which would be the home opener. It would be a nice feather in his cap. I think he's earned it. The fans would love to see him, and he's been great at home. So I wonder if that's the way Rob is kind of lining up things. Maybe Wheeler, Luzardo, Nola, Sanchez, and then Ranger. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. They're all good. But the home opener is special, and maybe given his track record at home and just the improvements he's made, the dedication he showed, he's in great shape. He's not resting on that big contract he got. He's not comfortable. He's not complacent. He's coming in here ready to go. And maybe that's the way they're going to go. What do you think?
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez are scheduled to pitch against the Yankees. Rangers going to kind of piggyback Zach Wheeler. That's Rangers' first start of the season. So it certainly seems to be lining up that way. And that makes a lot of sense because Sanchez at home, you're right, is nails. He's been fantastic at Citizens Bank Park. So, yeah, makes sense.
I did want to say something about that contract. Sometimes you have to be careful when you're signing a guy when he's throwing his best. But I think, and you're not quite sure, where he's going to go with his career. But I think the Phillies did a really nice job of understanding this player, understanding what this guy was all about. And they felt really comfortable because of the makeup. They knew that he wasn't going to be a guy that sat on it. There's so a little bit like what we did with, Ryan Howard. Ryan Howard actually got himself in better shape after the contract. He did a bunch of, obviously got hurt. That was not something he can control with his Achilles. But that said, when we signed him twice to one big long-term contract to buy him out of his arbitration years, that was a historic contract at the time. He put himself in a position to be better. Worked on his defense, worked on his body. Same thing with Christopher Sanchez. They knew his makeup. They understand him. He's going to do everything he can to live up to that contract. And I really like that about the kid. And it's a great decision by the Phillies front office, I think.
Sanchez yesterday, sinker touched 98.3, and they kind of put that into perspective. Last season, his best pitch, hardest pitch was 98.3. And after he pitched the last week in Port Charlotte against the Rays, he thought he could have his fastball sitting in 95, 96 mile an hour range. Again, I know it's just spring training, just 2 starts, but his fastball, the sinker yesterday, averaged 96.9 miles an hour. That's up almost 2.5 miles an hour from last season. Not sure what that means long term, but he came into camp in great shape, as Jim said, definitely stronger, definitely motivated. He said he spent a lot of time this offseason working on his slider. He wanted to get it more consistent. It was a good pitch last year, but he thought it could be better, and the early returns on that are pretty good. So my best week,
Manco, best of the best.
My guy is Jesus Luzardo, who had a really nice debut last week for the Phillies. Man, oh man, if Jesus Luzardo does what he's did a couple years ago and in previous seasons before he got hurt last year, but he looked great last week. His fastball was like 96.9, 90, touched 97.7 on Friday. It averaged 96.7. So he also, what I liked about Jesus Luzardo is this: he has a great slider. It's kind of been he calls it his bread and butter pitch. It's a kind of a tight slider. And in talking to Caleb Cotham in the offseason, he said, have you thought about doing some of the little bit more horizontal break, or maybe a little bit of a sweeper type of pitch? And he said, yeah, I've thought about it, and he's working on that right now as well. So he's adding a little wrinkle into his arsenal this spring. He says it's not 100%. He's going to bring it into this season, but talking to JT Realmuto the other day, he says it's a very good pitch. It's a solid pitch. And so that's something to watch as well. So I thought Jesus Luzardo had a great debut. Again, just 1 start, spring training. No one's going to talk about it in 3 months from now and go, remember that spring training start? But he had an excellent week. So It's three
Yeah,
great
it's actually
choices.
training, as we talked about, but anytime you step on the mound for the first time with a new team with a high expectation, it's easy to get sort of rattled. This guy loves like the attention. He loved pitching in Citizens Bank Park against the Phillies. The Phillies didn't like it, but I will say that that he handled it really, really well. I think he's one of those energy guys that can handle it. Hopefully, he can do it during the season. It certainly seems like he'll be able to handle that, and certainly did it in his first start in Clearwater.
It's got to kind of electrify a player mentally and competitively when you go from a team that you know is not going to contend, like the Marlins, and you join a team that has World Series aspiration. It's got to just supercharge you, and I kind of see that in him. Coupled with the outstanding physical ability, it could be a really nice combination.
You know that my favorite example of that, guys, and you remember this, of course, is the Roy Oswalt trade in July of 2010. I think it was July of 2010. He was he was okay-ish for the Astros, and then he comes over to the Phillies, and he had an ERA under 2 the rest of the season. Like he just was like, it would totally re-energize him. So.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we talked about before getting him. Is he's a super competitor. He's, there's a lot of veteran players who have been through the wars, and Lenny Dykstra comes to mind. He was one of those guys that was a great competitor when the team was really good. When the team was crappy, so was he. I mean, I shouldn't say he was crappy. His competitive edge did not come out, and he was a really, really great ball player. Pretty much his whole career, but you could see he took it to a different level. And there's a lot of players who do that. Roy Oswalt happened to be one of them. Yep. Cliff Lee ended up being one of those guys when it was tight. He was, sort of pretty even keeled, but some guys just love that situation, and it can go the other way. It can be dangerous. Like some guys who have not been in that situation and have not played in like competitive situations where the expectations are high. Some of those guys really struggle. I think about Kenny Rogers when he went to New York, when there's a huge expectation on him, and in Texas, they didn't really compete in the West over there, and never really had a lot of success. But then he comes over and did really well there. Comes over to New York and pitches for the Yankees, and really did not pitch all that well. So it really kind of depends on the makeup, and I think the Phillies hit on both Luzardo and Sanchez in that regard.
Yeah, it was fun. So Mango best week. We will be back with that next. Like I said, the first episode every week throughout the season. So we're looking forward to that, guys. Let's do some audience questions, Philly Show fan questions. You guys ready to rock and roll? Got a lot of questions yesterday about Taijuan Walker before he pitched yesterday and then after he pitched yesterday. So let's start with some of those. What is the most likely outcome with Taijuan Walker? That's from Phillies fan 75. Is Walker open to pitching out of the pen? That's JR00C on Instagram. What do you guys really think about Walker? Is he really looking better this spring? Will he be a reliever in the bullpen? Those are just some of the questions about Taijuan Walker. So let's just give a quick rundown yesterday. Taijuan Walker, he pitched 2 innings, gave up a home run, but it was an objectively good pitch. It was a slider down out of the zone. Dalton Varsho got the bat head down, golfed it out of the ballpark to right field. You guys know that ballpark in Dunedin, and man, the ball flies out of there. His first pitch yesterday, 93.7 miles an hour. He touched 93.9 miles an hour in the first inning. He hit 93.9 just once all of last season. His fastball averaged 92.9 miles an hour yesterday. In his first spring start last year, it was 89.4. So again, you don't want to rush to judgment or anything like that, but clearly he looked way better than he did at any point last season, and certainly than he did at any point last spring. His splitter was good. He got 3 ground ball outs on it. He got a swing and miss on it. That was a big problem for him last year. So what do we think, fellas, about, again, just one start, but Taijuan Walker?
Good, Rube.
I think it's a great sign. Anytime you can have that, this is what we were talking about with starting pitching depth. You never know what's going to happen during the course of this spring. Who knows who comes up with a balky shoulder, balky elbow. Every single year, there's something going on with somebody, whether it's Wheeler, Nola, typically not, but you never know who might be banged up a little bit. Ranger Suarez only come out of, one spring training, I think, in his last 5 years where he's been healthy. So It's, to me, it's all about the depth. And if you can have as many starters as possible ready to go, I think that's a great thing. I think ultimately, if everybody is healthy, I think he's going to go into the bullpen and be a long guy. He may put himself in a position with other teams out there looking for starting pitching where he might be able to be a trade piece. I know if I'm sitting there and I'm Dave Dombrowski and I'm going, please show me something so that other GMs, other teams, hopefully he gets through this spring healthy, that maybe we can move him in a certain situation where we don't have to take back too much money, whatever the case may be. Anytime you can have a guy like this pitching well, especially deep in the spring. Now, I'm not going to say anything until his last 2 starts. Really, those that's when I'm really evaluating him. And I'm sure other teams are too. They're watching everything. I think that this is really important for the Phillies. It's a great thing. There's never, ever enough pitching and never too much pitching. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is I got to give the guy some love, man. He worked very hard. He just sat and done nothing and not try to improve and, not worked on some of the things that he did in the offseason. Well, he did so. He did that, and he got himself into a position where he's throwing the ball with a little bit more zip. He has to separate that fastball from his split because that makes him more effective. All those things, I think, are a great thing. And you got to give Taijuan Walker some credit for putting himself in a position. I mean, at this age and at this stage, he didn't have to do this. He's guaranteed his money. The next $36 million are his in his pocket. And for him to be able to and to want to do that and a desire to do that, you got to give him a little bit of love for that too.
I definitely have a lot of respect for the work he put in this offseason, and it's got to be a great feeling for him to see some early results, tick up on the fastball, splitter, just pitching better. That said, I don't think you can read a ton into it. I think you can look at some of the metrics and be encouraged by them, but I don't think you can read a ton into spring training performance and especially early spring training performance. But what it does for him, it could end up buying him that last spot in the bullpen as they continue to, contemplate what direction they're going to go. Maybe he becomes valuable as a long man. I'm sure the depth could end up being valuable in the rotation. And maybe they entice a buyer on the trade market. But what do you think they'd have to eat to move that?
Well, I was going to ask you, Ruben, hypothetical, say you're a GM on another team right now and you really need some starting pitching. A couple guys are down or some guys aren't performing. Say Taijuan Walker does what he does all spring and he pitches really well, right? If you're the opposing GM and the Phillies call you up or you call them and they go, listen, we want you to take on some of the salary. Is that a hard no for you? Do you say, listen, I'm not eating any money. The guy had a 7 ERA last season. This is just spring. Like, how do you try to work that negotiation so you're not taking on much salary? What's your argument, I guess, or what's your pitch to Dave Dombrowski to try to make this trade?
As I evaluate, I sort of have to project, right? What's it going to be the next 2 years? What kind of pitcher is he going to be? Is he going to be a 3, a 4, or a 5? He's not going to be a 1 or a 2. And what is that value on the market in the marketplace? And how can I make this trade? So to me, a pitcher of this caliber is probably somewhere between the $8 million and $12 million range. So as I'm thinking through this thing, the Phillies are going to have to probably take close to half of it back. And that's reasonable. It seems reasonable. And it also helps with their payroll situation. Maybe it allows them to do something at the trade deadline. The Phillies to do something a little bit more aggressive at the trade deadline, whatever the case may be. That said, I'm not sitting in Dave Dombrowski's shoes. I'm not sitting in Preston Mattingly's shoes. But if I'm evaluating from afar, he's probably in that $8 to $10 million range as a pitcher. And especially based on what I see towards the end of this spring, you may have a buyer out there because, hey, look at some of the contracts. Some of the pitchers who didn't even pitch. Who's a left-hander from Cleveland who is now, there's guys who are getting Boyd. Boyd got that contract. He only pitched like 47 innings or something the year before. Ended up getting like a 3-year deal at, what was it, maybe $25 or $30 million. I mean, that's a ton of money. And so there's a need for starting pitching. And if he can be that, if somebody thinks that he can be that durable guy that they signed originally for $17 million, I got to believe that there's going to be some teams out there that's going to need some starting pitching, especially towards the end of spring.
At least it's a fun little wrinkle for the rest of the spring based off of what he did yesterday. So he got several questions about the bullpen. Thoughts on the bullpen, better or worse than last year? That's from Stoffy Tyson. I don't know which was that, Instagram or X. Did the Phillies ever show interest in top relievers like Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott, etc.? Chase Bingaman on YouTube said, well, who do you guys predict will be the opening day closer? Even with Topper's love for a closer by committee, seems like Alvarado should have it locked up. Do you guys have any thoughts on the bullpen, what you've seen so far from many of these guys? Again, knowing that we're a little bit more than just a week through of Grapefruit League games.
Well, I'm loving what I'm seeing of Alvarado. And, Jordan Romano yesterday pitched with not even a B team behind him, a C team, and they kicked the ball around on him. So you can't really judge on that. I don't know what they're going to do. Rob doesn't anoint a guy, but when you look at the way he handles things, he obviously kind of in action anoints a guy and rides the hot hand. I think I would give Romano a shot out of the gate. He's done it. It's kind of in the back of your mind why you brought him here, even though you didn't want to say it explicitly. And I kind of like the idea of Alvarado coming along in the 7th and 8th and moving on that way and maybe building off that. But can the bullpen be better? I think they got 4 pretty good ones back there in Kerkering, Romano, Alvarado, and Strom. And, you got Ruiz. Time will tell. They all have ability. They all have talent. Romano was an upside play coming off an injury. There's real talent there. And there's a ton of upside in Orion Kerkering. If he makes that next step, if Alvarado in better shape can get some confidence and firing like he is, and Strom's got a good track record, you're looking at a pretty good bullpen. But, they got to perform. It's like the team in October. Talent's there. You got to perform.
Yeah, I think the bullpen always seems to be the most volatile piece of every team. I think in this situation, on paper, it seems like looks like a little bit of the weakness of this ball club. That said, it really depends on their overall performance. Listen, Hoffman had a ridiculous year last year. an insane season. And so it's hard to think that somebody's going to have a better season than what Hoffman brought to the table. And he came out of nowhere, basically. But that can happen for the Phillies, too. A guy like Kerkering can advance. A guy like Romano can, pitch under a situation where, we're in the tight. He's been there. He's done it. He's had some success. He was very, very consistent in 22 and 23, almost the same exact numbers. You sort of know what you're going to get out of him. I got to believe that Rob Thompson's going to start with him as the closer. Again, he may be pitching in the 8th. He may be pitching in just important innings, and somebody else might have to clean up the 9th or what have you. But I think right now it'll probably end up being the closer. But I fully expect Orion Kerkering to step forward at some point, and I think that the Phillies are counting on that.
Ruben, you made a great point last week. I think it was last Friday's show about Alvarado as a big confidence guy, and he needs to feel good about himself going into the season. So he came out throwing like gangbusters, 100.7 on the gun. He talked about he improved his diet in the offseason. He got in better shape. He seems really motivated and kind of under the radar. He threw a couple curveballs in that first appearance this spring. And so I went up to him yesterday in the clubhouse. I said, hey, you threw a couple curveballs. Are you going to throw more? You plan on throwing a couple more curveballs this season? He goes, yes. And I said, why? And he kind of started laughing. He's got that big, deep laugh. He goes, why? I said, yeah, tell me, explain it to me. And he said, because I want the hitters to think, it's not just sinker cutter. Now he's got a curveball. And Alvarado threw 3 curveballs all last season. He threw 0 curveballs in 2023. He threw 2 curveballs in his first Grapefruit League appearance. So he says that this is something he thinks he can throw for strikes. He thinks he can, get guys to chase it. And so that's, a motivated, hungry Jose Alvarado would be a very, very good thing for the Phillies bullpen.
And that is the art of pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Getting inside the hitter's head, confusing the heck out of him.
Yeah, he actually went, I want them to think Elby's coming in. It's not just cutter slider.
The hitter's got to know you have, a lot of weapons in your quiver. And then, advantage pitcher. It's like a football offense. You got to run some play action. You got to change it up. You got to keep the opposition guessing, because when you're guessing, you ain't comfortable. And when you're not comfortable, you can't hit.
Yeah, and a lot of people are guessing pretty consistently these days because they're worried about the velocity. So they feel like they have to guess on pitches. That's why you see at times some of the Phillies flailing at certain pitches because they're guessing X, they get Y, they swing at it regardless. And that's something they have to adjust on. But that said, that's what a lot of hitters are doing in this day and age because of the velocity coming out, because of the stuff. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why, amongst others, why you're seeing so many punch outs.
And the velo is absolutely incredible these days. I mean, we're talking about Taiwan hitting 93 and we're like, whoa, but 18, 20 years ago, okay, now that's like these guys spit at that.
Yeah, well, it's a different 93, 94. I think it's been pretty well documented that the hundreds that you're seeing are more out of the hand than they used to be towards the catcher. But that said, the velocity on a consistency basis is definitely faster, definitely harder.
Pat Ryan on YouTube, a lot of questions about the bench. He says, my main question is who is taking Weston Wilson's spot on the bench? Got some decent options so far. Rincones Jr. he mentioned, Oscar Mercado, non-roster guy, Christian Arroyo, non-roster guy, Buddy Kennedy. Of course, there's also Cody Clemens and Cal Stevenson on the 40-man roster. You guys have any thoughts on who the bench favorite is? There's a lot of interesting stuff. So Edmundo Sosa last week, he played left field and he played center field. Rob Thompson wants to really know if he can play center field. And I asked Rob the other day in Detroit, I said, is Johan Rojas, is he on this team or does he have to earn a spot on this team? He says, no. He has to earn a spot on this team. And if, I tell you what, if Edmundo Sosa can play competent center field, it gives them the option, if they want, to send Johan Rojas to AAA. I think Johan Rojas is going to make the team, but they're just trying to gather all this information and figure out what they can do. What do you guys think about the bench situation right now?
I just think one guy, I think you're right. I remember being in spring training with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1996, and they did not have a fourth outfielder. And I was battling for one of those jobs, and all of a sudden, our man Juan Samuel starts taking outfield play balls in the outfield and ends up knocking me off the roster. And I'm going away. I still haven't forgiven him. No, I'm kidding. They made an adjustment, and that's probably what they're doing with Edmundo Sosa. They're giving themselves some options so that if they feel like Johan Rojas needs to go back, maybe that happens. I would keep an eye on Oscar Mercado. He's a kid who can really play defense. He's had some success it's been in the distant past with the Cleveland Guardians. I think they were Guardians then. I'm not sure if they were at the time. Either the Indians or Guardians a few years back. He's had some success there. Great defender. He can do some things offensively. Got some pop, and he's actually shown well so far. So keep an eye on the Mercado, and it's going to be an interesting little bit of a race there. That Rob Thompson loves to have that defensive aspect. So if a person can play defense, that's big. I know everybody wants that offense, but listen, that offense is going to have to come from the first 5 or 6 guys in that lineup, not necessarily the 9th. So it'll be an interesting decision there at the end, and how they handle Rojas, number 1, and whether they want to go with an extra left-hander, off the bench, because they're very, very left-handed.
Well, keep an eye on this week too, because Rob Thompson also, he just offered this the other day. He said, we want Rojas to start bunting in the next week. So keep an eye out for that. So that's something that they really wanted him to do last spring. He was working on it last spring to not carry into the season. And it sounds almost like they told Johan first week of games, get your bats in, take your swings, but now they want him to start trying to bunt for some base hits and show that he can do that. So keep an eye on that if you're watching any of the games televised, or you're listening to any of the games on the radio, or just following along. Is Johan Rojas dropping any bunts down and getting on base that way? Because I think they want to make sure that he's comfortable doing that. That's something that they want to be part of his game.
I agree with you on Mercado. Interesting guy. He jumped on a hanging breaking ball, hit a home run yesterday. I would be totally in favor of Rojas going and playing every day. Sitting a little bit, it's not going to help him that much. But a lot of it is going to come down. Can Sosa give you some reps out there? And you only need the reps for like 1, 2, or 3 days. If you decide you need a full-time defender, then you go get Rojas from AAA. But I think Sosa is a good enough athlete and a good enough baseball player that he can give you enough reps out there that you can be protected on the bench with him. So we'll see what happens. And, it's going to be curious what happens with Cody Clemens. He's a good bat, good left, but he's left-handed. I'm not giving him away. I think he's a pretty valuable guy.
Yeah, Buddy Kennedy, of course, and Cody, of course, we have to mention that Cody Clemens and Buddy Kennedy are out of options. So if they don't make the team, they could lose them as organizational depth pieces. Kennedy this spring is 1 for 13, home run, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Clemens 4 for 13, double, home run, 3 RBIs, 3 strikeouts. And Cal Stevenson mentioning him because he's on the 40-man roster. He does have an option. He's 1 for 14. So just a little bit on that. All right, let's go a couple more here. Do you guys, what's your take on Turner batting leadoff? Trea Turner batting leadoff. That's from Barolo Girl on Instagram. You guys on board with it still? I know Ruben the other day, you said Bryson Stott you'd like as your leadoff guy, right?
Yeah, I do like Bryson Stott still. I mean, obviously, Trea Turner hasn't done a whole lot in the leadoff spot so far. He's not a guy who sees pitches. That said, if he can hit his way into that number one, because that's what he's going to have to do. He's not going to take a lot of pitches. He's not going to walk a lot. It's just not going to happen. But if he can hit his way into that spot, I think that's probably best for the team. That said, ultimately, I do think that Bryson Stott is still a guy that I would consider being in a leadoff slot. I think he's one of those guys that as he continues to mature, he'll see pitches, he'll foul some balls off, he'll do some things to control the strike zone, and he looks healthier. I can see that he seems like he's more comfortable with where he is as far as his overall health is concerned and his elbow. I still like him in that leadoff spot, but that said, if Turner can hit his way into that spot and be successful, I think that's probably the best thing for the Phillies moving forward.
And it might be the best thing for Turner. It might force him to think like a leadoff man, and it might, by osmosis, prompt more selectivity. Less chase, think more like a leadoff man, spray the ball around, line drive, not try to lift it so much to the pull side. But when you get a hanger, that's when you lift it to the pull side. So it just feels like that's the way they want to go. Give it a look for a while, see how it impacts Trea personally, and then from there, how it impacts the team with possibly Turner 1, Harper 2, Bohm 3, Schwarber 4. It's intriguing. I kind of want to see it. But I agree with you on Stott. We've talked about it a million times. He's got those type of skills. Rob Thompson has even said it a whole bunch. He hasn't said it much lately, but in past months and past years, he'll always talk about how he thinks Stott could someday be a leadoff guy, has a lot of the ingredients that a good leadoff guy has, but right now they want him down in the middle. It just seems like everything here is geared around getting more out of Trea, and putting him in the leadoff spot might allow you to get more out of him and therefore benefit the team.
Look into your crystal ball here. John K on Instagram wants to know, is this the year for the Dombrowski trade deadline blockbuster deal? I don't know if you guys can see that far into the future, but yeah, Dave hasn't really, emptied out there. It's funny. He had this reputation of just emptying out the farm system and just trading just tons of prospects, and he hasn't really done that so far.
Well, they don't have a ton of prospects to trade, number one. Some of them are down below. And the guys that they knew they would have to trade, the Aiden Millers of the world and the Crawfords of the world, you want to sort of see whether they become players. They're not going to move Painter. Is Abel a possibility? Maybe. I don't know how highly he's valued. But I really don't see necessarily a blockbuster deal happening this this trade deadline. I think they're going to roll with some of the players. Now, they might have to make some tweaks. A lot of it depends on the health. If they're healthy, one thing. If they're not, that's a whole different ball of wax. What happens if JT happens to go down and now you have a question as to whether or not, oh my goodness, who's going to be our next catcher of the future? Then there might be a blockbuster where you get like somebody, you prospect for prospect in that certain position, as they have done before, especially with Brandon Marsh when they did that with the Angels, and they traded O'Hoppe. I mean, that's a possibility, but I don't really necessarily see that. I see them tweaking at the trade deadline, and hopefully that's all they need to do.
It's impossible, to look that far ahead and see what's going to come. I guess at first blush, I would say I hope they don't make a blockbuster, because I think, sitting here on March 3rd or whatever it is, the only way I see a blockbuster is if they're playing really horribly and out of it at the trade deadline. And then you might see some veterans jettisoned. So I don't know which way they're going to go. I think they have a roster that's very good. The personnel is very good. I mean, I have questions about the outfield, but we'll see. So I probably at this moment, because of their makeup and their contract status of a lot of guys, probably more of a tweak. I think they're good enough to get to October, and then you got to turn around there.
Okay, a couple more. This is from Alan456 on Instagram. What are you looking forward to this season? It could be big picture, anything. I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. I just am looking forward to having baseball back on TV and on the radio in the summertime. I mean, those weekends where you're off and you're in your backyard, you got the grill going, you got the TV on, you got the radio on. That's real nice, Clark. Real nice.
I am looking forward to baseball again. It was a great winter for folks in Philadelphia. There's no question about it. The Eagles and things that happened, but I don't know. I think that this team is one of the best teams in baseball, and I'm really looking forward to these guys sort of moving forward, defending that NL East. It's going to be a tough NL East. There's no question about it. Mets are a little bit better, although they're getting banged up in spring training. I think the Atlanta Braves are going to be better because they're going to get healthier. It's going to be a really interesting NL East, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to seeing how the Dodgers react to all the talent that they have and all the expectation for them to repeat. Because I will tell you firsthand that it is tough to repeat. And so it'll be interesting to see how the Dodgers handle that NL West, because it's going to be a pretty good NL West as well. It'll be competitive with Arizona being, I think, improved, and also the Padres, who had a really good team. I thought that they were going to be pushing harder last year, but you never know. We'll see.
Kind of looking forward to the Mets, seeing what they got coming out of the gate, if they can recapture some of that chemistry and that magic they had really for 4 months last year. But, Phillies wise, and that's really all that matters here on the Phillies show. I'm just looking forward to October. I just want to see, it's all about October for this team, man. It's all about the trophy and the prize, and that's where the prize is in the month of October. October will define this team, and it can't come fast enough. And I, because I really want to see how it reaches, the conclusion and if they actually can win one. But I'll enjoy it along the way because baseball is an every night. It's like reading a novel. Every night's a new chapter, and you have fun with it. But can't wait to see what that last chapter looks like.
Two more. Let's name your favorite player of all time. This is from Lucas Picks on Instagram. Favorite player of all time. I'm going to go, for me, as a Milwaukee kid, Robin Young. Hands down. I was at his 3,000 hit game at County Stadium, one of the greatest sports memories of my life. So I got to go Robin Young, my favorite player of all time.
I got to go Mike Schmidt, man. Michael Jack just did everything as a kid and as a constituent, and love the person, love the player, greatest third baseman of all time, not even close. Michael Jack Schmidt is my guy. He could play defense. He could run the bases. He was athletic. He would hit home runs. He hit for average later on in his career, hit for power early in his career. Michael Jack, man. Michael Jack Schmidt.
My favorite all-time, it's right over my shoulder if you can see it. You see that license plate? Massachusetts license plate, YAZORR. Those are my two all-time favorites, Yastrzemski and Bobby Orr. So Carl Yastrzemski was my favorite all-time baseball player. Remains so. Yeah, Yaz. And you guys always, but yeah, he was my guy, man. I used to imitate him in the backyard, had the stance down perfect. I could introduce him just like the guy at Fenway, Schermfeller. What a player, man. And he was my favorite.
Last one. Michael Wolf on Instagram. How many wins do you think the Phillies will have this season? Give me a number, fellas. It's like the Price is Right.
I never like to make predictions. I'm terrible at them, and I'm wrong pretty much every time. But I'm going to say right at the 93 mark, 1993 Phillies, 93 W's. And they will win the NL East, excuse me.
I was going to say 94 wins. I think they're a 94 win team. It's a tough division. I also think I think they're the best team in the National League East.
I think I'll go 92. I think they're a 90-win team.
Yeah.
But I am concerned, over the last 102 games last year, they were 51-51, including the postseason.
Yeah, there should be some concern about that.
So, but, I do think they're a 90-win team. So I'll go 92 and slug it out for a division title with the Bravos. We'll see.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks for everybody. If you like the Philly Show, you can go to thephillyshow.com, get some Philly Show t-shirts. Here we still got some new ones coming in. Hopefully they show up at the doorstep in the next few days so we can get those ready to sell. We got some powder blues, maybe a new color coming in the mix. So guys, we'll I almost forgot to mention this. Wow. We've got a big guest coming on Wednesday. Hey, not only do we have a big guest coming on Wednesday, we have a big guest with a surprise guest in the episode. So we have a guest with a surprise guest.
Double feature.
It's a double feature. You guys are going to want to check it out. You guys want to check it out. I unfortunately cannot be part of this episode, but Jim and Ruben did a great job with this guest and special guest. So check it out. That'll be out on Wednesday morning, and then we'll be back later this week to talk about everything that happened down here in Clearwater and in the Grapefruit League. Fellas, talk to you later.
Smell you later, boys.
Smell you, Jim.
The Philly Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to The Philly Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, give us a review. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and Threads. Find Ruben's analysis before, during, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Find Jim at allphly.com. Find me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and MLB Network.